morning. Good morning. Thank you for joining another practice where we're going to focus on organization in general, emotional organization, and the relationships with organization in our life. So if that's the people or the things that we have purchased or consumed, even the relationship with our body. So how do we organize emotionally everything? This is going to be a continuation of like interior design, whereas in when I wrote that first book, Interior Design the Body, that was a lot of the focus was on getting to know your interior personally. And this next part is like, how do we kind of enter that next phase? So as usual, before we tap into the thought process, we're going to regulate our nervous system by taking a couple breaths and getting in touch with our interior in general. So wherever you are, notice what it is that you need today. Just lean back into your chair. You feel free to drop the shoulders. Just really begin to relax. Notice if your spine is aligned, like if you're sitting in a way where your shoulders are balanced and your bum is balanced. Notice your feet. You can roll the shoulders back. Align the spine with the neck. So notice if you're like leaning forward. A great thing to do is just like if the spine was a string of beads connected from your neck all the way down, just shift that neck back a little. You can tilt the chin ever so slightly and then just allow it to spring back to wherever it is. Notice the jawline. Notice the eyes. Notice your eyebrows. Just notice if there's any tension anywhere. Just check in with yourself today. I'm going to take that first inhale, placing the tongue at the roof of the mouth, softening the jaw, inhaling through the nose, filling the chest and the belly, just allowing that space to open up completely. Expand. You'll notice if your spine touches the back of the chair, as you expand, kind of also expands the spine as well, the vertebrae. So much of our life we spend collapsing into the midsection because there are very little bones and there are more organs. So when we expand the belly in that breath, what we're doing is we're inflating that space internally, which gives everything the space to do what it needs to do. Take the next inhale through the nose. Again, expanding the chest, expanding the belly. Take your time as you fill the belly. Really expand that space. Inhale and pause. Inhale and pause. Take the time to really fill that space. And exhale when you're ready. Taking the next inhale here. Inhaling through the nose. Taking all the time you need. And take what you need today. So give yourself that permission to be in a place where you can take what you need and receive. And when you're ready, you can exhale. I'm going to take another inhale here. Just notice if there are any parts of you that have throughout the week just you've spread yourself thin or any of that, and just allow that to bring all those pieces of yourself back to you. So drawing all those pieces of you towards you. And then softly exhaling. Just take a moment to sit in this stillness, in this softness, and just receive whatever it is that you need. All right, so I'm going to do that for a moment. Beautiful. And when you're ready, you can begin to wiggle your fingers and your toes. Softly open your eyes, and we will come back into this space. All right, amazing. Okay, so just in life in general, we've reached a point. It's like a tipping point in life where abundance itself has become a psychological stressor. So there's so much abundance and there's so much going on. So it's not that we're morally weak or lazy or even indulgent. It's that the world has become a place that is mismatched for our basic neurology and physiology. And we've tried to figure it out, but it's super hard. And we're getting sicker in the process. So these words are from Dr. Lembeck in her book on dopamine. And the thing is like this, that what she's trying to say is that there is so much going on. And for so many of us, we're reading it as, oh, we're lazy or we're weak. And really what happened is we're able to really understand that there's just this sense of abundance and there's a lack of sustainability. Then we can understand, oh, okay, what really has to happen in that focal point is that we have to focus on what I call an interior design. It's like it's in the functionality part of it, right? When we form, where form follows function, where the things that we have should function correctly. So rather than being in a position where you have the things you get to kind of daydream about all the things you want and need, it's about really focusing on what are things, the function in life, right? So for a lot of us, if we're feeling a sense of anxiety or unhappiness, like one of the first things that comes up for us is, oh, maybe I need a vacation, right? Or I need to treat myself to something. The brain kind of tells us there's a lack, but really it's not so much of a lack as in a lack of abundance or a lack of treating ourselves or pampering ourselves. The lack is in taking the time to reconnect with ourselves on a deeper level and organize the things we have not necessarily introduce new things into our life. And that's kind of the misconception. I've been experiencing some of this having a teenage daughter, and when it comes to having clothing, right? Nowadays, you can get so much for so cheap. Not only can you get so much for so cheap, but so many people are just giving away stuff because people wear things for one season. The garment itself is, number one, not made properly, right? So things are made cheap. So even in the investment of the person creating the garment, it's made almost for that one-time use experience. And then we have this one-time use experience, but then we're in a position where we have this thing and then we have another thing and another thing, right? So in a closet, then you just have so many clothes and then you're just not sure what to do with it, because once it entered your life, you don't want to just let it go, right? Even if you're just going to wear it once. And what happens is not only does it take up physical space, it takes up mental space and emotional space, to the point that you go into the closet and there's so much there, and then you're like, I'm not sure what I'm going to wear. Meanwhile, you know that 50% of what's there was only a one-time use. So if we were coming from a different angle, where maybe we spent a little bit more money and time to consult with ourselves and see what it is that we really enjoy, right? If it's a brand, if it's the way something is made, if there's a quality to it, right? We have less in the closet, but there's a higher satisfaction rate. There's always that thing in your closet that you love, right? That you can wear every single day. I have two sweatshirts that I got. I got the exact same sweatshirt in two colors for the winter, and I love them. They were a little bit more expensive, but they have pockets and they just fit me right, and they're warm and comfortable and they wash well. And it was a little bit more than I would spend normally, but I've already gotten quite a few years of really good use out of them, and I really like how I look and feel when I wear them. So I'm bringing up clothing because clothing is something that we're not so emotionally attached to. It does create chaos, but it's not the extent of chaos that I'm saying, like, there isn't such a overwhelming emotional burden there. So the thing is like this, that these things begin with ideas, right? So we talked about, in the last few weeks, we've been talking about intention and intuition, right? So the thing is that with anything in our life, if it comes to clothing, relationships, if it comes to anything if it comes to finances, right? Anything that we're introducing into our environment, the first thing we have to do is be accountable to the things that are in our life already, right? So there has to be some kind of priority list of who or what is most important in my life, right? And then the intentions is to make sure that these things are functioning, right? There's a functionality component. So if you're ever not sure, if there's something that you're struggling with your life and you're not sure, it could be eating something, it could be bringing even a piece of furniture into the house, or eliminating a piece of furniture or clothing, you can ask yourself, what is the function of it, right? And if it doesn't actually have a function, the function could be that it's a roadblock in your life, right? And that's really important to notice. So the thing is not to become negative, but to just observe and be like, oh, this is what it's doing. A while back, we talked about when we're trying to kind of clear the space internally for ourselves. One of the things that is really important to know is that when we bring stuff into our life, if you think about like a bedroom, for example, if you constantly bring stuff into the bedroom, right? So you take your shoes off, you leave them in the bedroom. You do another load of laundry, the basket stays on the floor. What ends up happening is you get up in the morning, and even though there is room, you begin to walk around these things, right? So you're climbing over you're climbing over the basket and then around the shoes, and sometimes you trip over one thing or another thing, right? And you're like, what's the big deal? What's the big deal? But it is a big deal, because when you do clean up that space, what you're doing is you're eliminating roadblocks. And those roadblocks then, without the roadblocks in our way, there's a focus and a flow. Not only is there a focus and a flow, there's a confidence that is brought into the space. Jordan Peterson always says, like, start your day with making your bed. And it's interesting because when there is a structure, right, whatever it is, even if it's not specifically making your bed, but notice what it is that helps clear the space and not create even an emotional roadblock. So that is really important to notice. So first of all, noticing also it's an abundant world. For a lot of us, there's many areas in our life that we can choose a lot of things. There's some areas that we can't choose, right? There's certain situations that we are conditioned to, and Hashem put us in those situations. And the misconception a lot of times is that we can escape those by bringing in more clutter, emotional or spiritual clutter, or even physical clutter, or even escape the situation in itself, rather than taking the time to be like, okay, this is what is in my life, right? These are the things that are in my life. How do I organize myself to be able to create the highest performance in these things that are really in my life, and not create almost like a virtual reality for ourselves? Sometimes having a little bit of stuff going on the side is okay if it's helping us survive certain situations, but we have to ask ourselves, is it distracting me from actually doing what I need to do? Because a lot of times there's certain situations that we're in that we emotionally feel like there's no choice, and there's part of not feeling like we have a choice is because we keep distracting ourselves from what is really important. So intuitively, that's where the intuition comes in. You have to kind of consult your intuition and your intentions and see, am I in a position where I'm distracted or not taking accountability for the things I need to do, or is it a position where this is the reality, right? So it was interesting because I had a conversation with somebody this week, and it's somebody that I work with closely, and she called and she's like, I don't know, there's so much going on, and she kind of listed some of the stuff that she's struggling with, and all I needed to say was, you know exactly what you need to do. And she paused for a moment, and then a big smile on her face, and she's like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. You're so right. I do know what I need to do. All I needed to do was give her the space to think, to stop and process, and give her that encouragement and that trust. And that's all she needed, to give her the clarity of what she has to do next. Whatever she does next, that's going to be up to her. But now she has that clarity. So the thing is coming back to this abundance, and this, which can come sometimes be clutter, goes back to the story I shared a few times, but I'll bring it up again because I feel like it's relevant here as well, of the farm in Apricot Farms, where they had most of California, right? Like right now with the droughts and the fires that are burning, a lot of what is going on is that the ground is so dry. It is so dry and so dense and dead that if water comes down from the heavens, it can't even absorb into the ground because it's that dry. So there's this farm called Apricot Farms, and this person that really wanted to change and transform this. And everyone says, no, it's impossible in California. You can't do this. And she actually managed to build this farm, this intuitive farm, this beautiful, like quite a few acres. She planted beautiful trees, and there is so much nourishment that's coming out of her experience, where she managed to enrich the soil. That was the goal. The goal was, let's see what nature has to offer me, right? So it's not only what does Hashem want from me, it's also knowing that Hashem has created certain rules in life, right? And that structure. And it's so important to take that and understand that that structure is there for us. And basically what she ended up doing was they basically worked on enriching the soil. And by enriching the soil, it was in a place where it was so moist and had so many minerals inside it. And it was so aerated, where when all of California starts to flood on her farm, her soil is able to absorb all the nourishment it needs. And we could see even from this thing of the fires that if the soil is in a place where it is aerated and there is that moisture in it, it would be much harder for everything to catch fire. That's also another thing to just notice. So when we take that metaphor into our own life, sometimes the things that are so good for us are right in front of our face. It's the things that are in our life already, not the stuff that we are dreaming about. It's the stuff that's there that just needs to be developed. And it's day in, day out, that dedication of, rather than saying, I want a completely different life, or I want a completely different experience, or I want to transform this room completely into something it's not. It's looking at what we have in our life and saying, how am I going to bring this out to the best of its ability to perform at its best? Because if it doesn't, it catches fire and it floods, and the nurturing that's there to heal us and nurture us ends up harming us. So when we think of abundance, right, the thing is that we're in a day and age, right, as this doctor was saying, is that we're in this day and age where abundance can be harming us. And even though we might think that it's giving us everything we need and there's this illusion, there is a possibility that some of it is it's actually harming us more than it's actually helping us. So give me a second. I'm just going to read this bit as well from her, and then we'll because we're going to be building on this. So she says that the overindulgence in pleasure can backfire dramatically. It heavily prolongs. One second. So what she's saying is that what it ends up doing is, to our dopamine, we end up going from these really, really high states of dopamine to these very lows. So when we're in the space of consuming abundance, whatever it is, it could be from consuming social media to consuming, just consuming, even as we said, clothes, food, just the accountability of what are we taking into our life? What are we taking into our body? Right? And she says that what it does is it creates this inconsistency in our brain. When I started my meditation training, one of the things my teacher taught me was, he said, even when you're scrolling, everything you see, it could be a WhatsApp status, anything you see, like you could be flipping through a magazine, every single picture, even if you're going really fast, has to digest in the body. So it's like saying everything you eat needs to digest. Everything you eat is calories. And that is really important to pay attention to, because the body has to digest it. So he says, even if it's just you scroll and you're like, whatever, it's not something I'm interested in, and you go into the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, ask yourself how many segments you've flipped through in a day. How many pieces have your eyes even seen? Every single one of those have to process. Now, there's another component that's really important to understand is that when we are consuming in general, right, when there is that abundance there, when we talk about intention and intuition, right, back to the intention from last week, when we're trying to really deepen our intuition, the more we have in our life, the harder it is to identify what actually belongs to us, where our responsibilities are, what the functionality component of whatever form it's creating, right? So one thing to just pay attention to is that even if you're looking through something, ask yourself, what's the function of this? And is it creating like these synthetic emotions, right? It's because they're not real. It's like saying empty calories. So it's this kind of thing that ends up leaving you empty and frustrated, just like finding another pound on the scale that is unnecessarily there. So when we're right, because it doesn't have a place to go. Everything in life should be like a closet that we can put things back into. If things don't have a place, it's very nice to have a lot, but a lot doesn't mean anything anymore. It used to be like back in the day, right? And again, it was a different time, but if you just look even 1 or 2 generations ago, everybody had like very bulky furniture, bigger spaces. There was a lot more physical form. And it went from that space into where we are now, where we value access over assets. Access means we want to get through. We want to be able to move through. Yes, you can relate because you probably have seen more than we have. So yes, you want the, so nowadays we want the access. We want to be connected. We want to connect. We want to be able to move around. We don't want to be like held down by anything, right? But the problem that we struggle with in that scenario, where we have to find a balance between the two, is that if we right, in an age where you can order anything off of Amazon and change an entire room for under $500 and get rid of whatever you have, and it's just like that cycle of clutter and declutter, it feels productive. And it might feel even awesome that you have the ability to recreate your style every single season in any format, if it's a physical room or your kids' clothing or whatever it is, right? Even when it comes to foods. But the thing is, you have to ask yourself, how much brain space is it taking? Is it taking good energy, quality energy that I could be investing in something that has a little bit of a long-term benefit in my life? Number 2, we're asking ourselves, can we afford that, right? So that's really what it is do we have that energy? Can we afford it? And that's emotionally, physically, it's not just financially. We have to kind of pay attention to our behavior and see, like, are we doing this? Why are we doing this? And then coming back to it, the thing is that what that furniture used to do for people back in the day, we're going to talk about, rather than having, is that there was a certain sense of accountability. You knew you bought something and you bought something to last. You knew that when you're buying something, you're committing to wearing it or using it. You weren't going to just replace it, right? I have one of my daughter-in-laws, it was, this piece like really touched my heart when it was Sheva Brachos, and she's the youngest of a very large family, and her mother is even older than my mother, but she is this rock star, this woman. And my daughter-in-law wore a dress that her mother wore at her own engagement. So you're talking about something that has years on it. And it really touched my heart. It touched my heart, first of all, the sentimental aspect. Second of all, I could see this thing was sewn so well. I was like, they make so many of these like floral dresses nowadays, but nothing was sewn and as elegant as this dress was. So that was that. And the value that it that it brought to the table. And she's incredible. They're both incredible. And they've made the bar so high in my life. But the point was that I could see the impact of something that had so much value and how far it can go, to the point that, like, you know, that it was appreciated and it was able to be passed down and worn again and cherished, right? There was so much content and so much substance related to this experience. And it said so much, it told me so much about the experience. And it was really, really special. And again, it was something I didn't expect. And sometimes when we're able to just invest a little bit more of ourselves into something and really commit to it, rather than kind of only trying to get access to things, right? It's not about how far you can go. It's about surrendering and being able to build on what you actually have. The success rate is so high, is so much higher. So as we kind of enter this new space where we're going to evolve into this new book series, right? This is going to be a new book that I'm going to be working on, which is going to be focusing on organizing relationships and just our homes and our lives and the productivity measure. I'm really excited to venture out into it. Thank you so much for joining this experience. I will also be doing a course, because this is such a high demand, this is a really, really high demand topic. I'm going to be putting on a course. The first round is going to be for free. I'm going to, when this video is published, there will be a link below to a form that you could fill out, and then I can choose, we're going to choose a few people that I can let in for free. And then afterwards, the experience in itself is going to be $750. So it's going to be like a 4 to 6 week course, and it's going to help with structuring the blueprint. It's a lot of what we're doing in Nourish to Flourish. So if you want like a lighter kind of version of it, we're kind of doing Nourish to Flourish and spreading that out a little bit thinner, where we go into a little bit detail and we have a lot more time to delve in. So Nourish to Flourish is also available, which I'll also put underneath this. I'll add a link for Nourish to Flourish below. But I'm open for questions, or if anyone has any comments, we can do that.